Let's start off with some geometric series and how we can solve them. Let's say that we're given a problem of -1, 2, so on and so forth, all the way to s sub 8. Now you might be wondering how we can solve this. The way we can solve this is by getting or finding our 8 or our a sub 8. So to solve this, we need to identify our ratio. So we got -1 and got -2. This ratio here is -2. The reason why it's -2 is because if we multiply -1 multiplied by -2, it will become -2. And you can and so on and so forth. We already know that the third or our a sub 3 is going to become -4. So let's start off by putting down our a sub 1, which is -1. Keep note that a sub 1 is always our first term, which is -1 in this case. This is our first term. And our common ratio is -2. Now, we have to use the formula or the geometric formula, which is written down as a sub n is equals to a sub 1 multiplied by r raised to the nth minus 1. Now, we know that our n is 8 because we're looking for s sub 8. So we just do this formula. We're looking for a sub 8. A sub 8 is equals to our a sub 1, which is -1, multiplied by our common ratio, which is -2. And you see this 8 over here, our a sub 8, this will become our exponent. And we minus that by 1, we subtract that by 1, -1, which will become 7. Now, once we have done that, we now know that -2 to the power of 7 is -128. So we write that down. Hold on. So you write that down as a sub 8 is equals to -1 multiplied by -128. Or if you want, we can completely skip this part and say it's already 2. Our a sub 8 is 128. The reason why it became positive 128 instead of -128 is because we're multiplying a negative number to a negative number. So which then, if we multiply negative by a negative, it becomes a positive. Now, once we've got our a sub 8, which is a sub 8 is equals to 128, we can use the geometric sum, which is done in s sub n is equal to a sub 1 multiplied by 1 minus r to the power of n divided by 1 minus r. However, there's another formula instead of using this, which is this formula, a sub n multiplied by r minus a sub 1 divided by r minus 1. To make this more clear, we need to get our final term, or what the term, or our nth term, what they are asking. So basically our nth term here is 128. And we multiply that to our common ratio, which is -2, minus our first term. And then divide that by our common ratio minus r, and then and subtract that by 1. This is the more simplified version, or the more simplified version of this formula. Let's use the formula I've given, for example. So we got our a sub 8, which is 128. 128 multiplied by our common ratio, which is -2, minus our first term, which is -1. Divide that by -2, -2 minus 1. This is negative, and this is also negative. So this becomes into a positive. This is a negative number, and this is a negative number. However, the -2 is the first one that comes up there. So this is going to be -3. So basically our denominator is going to be -3 because -2 is in the first part. So this becomes -3, and this becomes positive 1. Let me write it down for you. 128 multiplied by negative 2. This becomes positive 1. Divide that by negative 3. Afterwards, we need 128 multiplied by negative 2 is equal to negative 256 plus 1. Divide that by negative 3. This becomes negative 255. Divide that by negative 3, which then becomes positive 85. So our S sub 8 is equals to positive 85. Now, you might be wondering, how did it become positive 85 if we're dividing it by negative 3? Well, it's very simple. If you divide, just like multiplication, if you multiply a negative number to a negative number, it becomes to a positive number. And if you divide a negative number to a negative number, if you divide those, they also become positive. So just keep that in mind. If you multiply a negative to a negative, it becomes a positive. If we divide a negative to another negative, it becomes a positive as well. So this is our final answer, which is 85. Just a quick side note though, that this formula here is a not like that tedious version where we use the actual formula itself, but this formula is a simplified version, like a very easy and very efficient version. Essentially, it's like way faster to do or get the sums compared to the main version here. Just what I said earlier, just as I said earlier ago, the version that I showed you was a simplified version, the more efficient one, and like the very easy one, than using the tedious process where you have to where we have to use the exponents. Using that formula will also arrive to the same answer, especially as to this formula here. We'll also arrive to the same answer if we compare it. So just remember that these two formulas are technically the same. You can either use the original formula or the more efficient and very simplified version formula. How about we move on to a different problem where it contains a fraction. Everybody loves fractions. Of course, everybody likes fractions. Let's say you're given a problem of a sub 1 is equals to 1/3, and our common ratio is 4, and our nth term is 6. To solve this, we need to find for our a sub 6. So a sub 6 is equals to our a sub 1, which is 1/3, multiplied by our our common ratio, which is 4, and then 6, or our nth term to the power of n, which is 6. We can just completely mentally do this. 6 minus 1. 6 minus 1 is just 5. So 4 to the power of 5 is 1024. A sub 6 is equals to 1/3 multiplied by 1024. And 1024 divided by 3 is not divisible because it will just appear into a decimal numbers. So therefore, our a sub 6 is just 1024 divided by 3. This is our a sub 6. Now, we can either use the essential one or the more tedious version. Let's go with the essential one. So remember, we're looking for our s sub 6, or the sum of 6, which is our nth term is 6. So we're looking for s sub 6. So we first write down our last term, which is 10, 1024, divided by 3. Multiply that to our common ratio, which is 4, minus 1/3. Divide that by 1. Our common ratio minus 1. My brain is not working. Oh, wait a minute. I can just multiply 4 to the numerator. So 4 times 1024 is 496. Let's write that down. 496 divided by 3 minus 1/3. 4 minus 1. This is 3. These are like terms. The denominators are 3. So we just write down 3. Since they're like terms, we just combine them. 496 minus 1 is just 495. 495. Divide that by 3 as well, because we need to do this. Now, we just divide it. We just divide this first one here, the top part, the numerator. This will become 1365. 1365. Divide that by 3, then our final answer will be arrived to 455. Our sum, our S sub 6, is equals to 455.